Are we good to go? Recording? Lovely. So, hello everybody and welcome to the Discover ACAP Criminology session. My name is Nick Hart and I'm one of ACAP's National Course Advisors. In tonight's session, myself and ACAP's Discipline Lead and Course Coordinator for Criminology, Mr. Matt Thurgood, will take you through everything you need to know about studying a course in criminology. I'll firstly give you some information about what makes ACAP different, as well as the services and support that we can provide. Matt will then introduce himself and run through some course-specific information. However, at any stage, if you have any questions throughout, please feel free to post these in the chat function below, where one of my colleagues, Shelley or Brendan, will respond as soon as they can. So let's take a moment in commencing tonight's session by acknowledging the traditional owners of country throughout Australia and recognising their continuing connection to land, waters and culture. We pay our respects to their elders, past, present and emerging, and we recognise those whose ongoing effort to protect and promote Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander cultures will leave a lasting legacy for future elders and leaders. So who are we? ACAP is the Australian College of Applied Psychology, and we've been delivering specialist courses in the helping professions for over 38 years now, since 1983. We're a national provider of these programs, delivering on-campus studies in Sydney, Melbourne, Brisbane, Adelaide, Perth, and very recently Byron Bay. We also cater to those living rurally or internationally through our online or blended delivery model. This online delivery can be selected for our criminology discipline should you wish to complete your studies in the comfort of your own home, or is available via on-campus study at our Melbourne campus. However, ACAP doesn't just provide criminology programs. You may also be familiar with our other disciplines such as psychology, social work, counselling and coaching. Each of these disciplines have their own delivery methods that you can choose from, so be sure to have a look at the attendance requirements before enrolling, or again, simply ask our fantastic course advisors. Since ACAP was founded, we have successfully graduated over 13,000 students nationwide, having them industry ready upon the completion of their qualifications. Now we've covered who we are, it's time to look at who you are and why you may wish to study criminology with ACAP. ACAP's personalised learning experience is one of the first reasons students choose to study with us. With weekly classes that can be completed both in and outside of business hours, our students are able to select what times work for them and we'll cover the rest. Class allocations are done on a first-in, first-served basis, meaning the sooner you enrol, the quicker we can allocate the best times for you. And during COVID-19, we have been flooded with positive responses regarding our classroom experience, whether that be in person or online. With our smaller class sizes, students also have the opportunity to study on campus where restrictions and regulations regarding your safety and social distancing can be easily assured. You'll have the reassurance that no questions will go unanswered and you'll be given the time and attention that our students deserve. Having educators that are working in the industry as well as teaching, whether they're offering their own independent service, leading a team of industry professionals, or engaging in academic research, their knowledge and experience is second to none and won't leave you guessing whether ACAP was the right decision. The network connections, reputation and legitimacy that our college has in the sector also means that we can have you ready to step into a professional career upon the successful completion of our undergraduate and postgraduate awards. Our accrediting bodies, such as the Career Industry Council of Australia, Australian Psychology Accreditation Council, Australian Association of Social Workers, Australian Counselling Association, Psychotherapy and Counselling Federation of Australia, and the International Coaching Federation means that you have the assurance that upon completing our qualifications, you will be recognised Australia-wide for your discipline studies and experience. Future ACAP students don't need to worry if they aren't ready to commence their studies at the beginning of the academic calendar either. You can select from one of 3 intakes each year at the beginning of February, end of May or start of June, and middle of September. If you've taken a look at our fees and payments page as well, you will have seen that ACAP also has access to Commonwealth Assistance, or better known as Fee Help. This program is available to Australian citizens, New Zealand Special Category Visa holders, or humanitarian visa holders, and the purpose of this program is to defer the cost of your studies till you have the financial capability to afford small repayments as little as $10 to $20 a week. And better yet, these repayments are deducted prior to tax, so it's hardly noticeable. Now, ACAP doesn't just support you in your class time either. We have a plethora of various networks and support services readily available to ensure you get the most out of your studies and excel with your personal and professional growth. We offer services such as our student learning support team, who run regular webinars and workshops. They have how-to guides, video tutorials, and even their own website where all of this useful information can be found, giving you more independence throughout your journey. They are even happy to sit with you one-on-one to go through study plans and all the important things for your assessments, such as academic writing, referencing, and presenting. ACAP have recently brought in our new Ally initiative as part of the Pride and Diversity Network. We support students from all walks of life and promote equity, sustainability, and advocacy for every community. We hold regular catch-ups for those who are interested to get involved, meet like-minded individuals, and develop lasting connections. We've seen that extracurricular initiatives and programs like this don't just boost student morale, but they also help the students to flourish in their studies with peer-to-peer support. As I briefly touched on earlier, ACAP has a flexible approach to our teaching and learning through applied skills that won't just teach you how to thrive in the sector, but also put those teachings to practice. We do this through a trimester model for our studies, running each of our 3 intakes every year. With full and part-time options available for your studies, you can take things slow or even accelerate your studies in some circumstances. This can be done through one of 4 options: on campus, online, blended, or a combination of these deliveries, both in and outside of business hours. Please do speak to your course advisor when enrolling to get a thorough understanding of how each of these delivery methods work and how it may look for you. And so that's that. Now that you know all about ACAP in general, let's take a look at why we're all here, to study criminology. So let me hand over to Mr. Matt Thurgood, Melbourne Discipline Lead and Course Coordinator in Criminology.
Thanks very much, Nick, and welcome to everyone who's in the room with us. Thanks for joining us tonight. Nick, do you want to just stop sharing? Thanks, mate. I'll just throw up my slides, folks. There we go. So I trust you can see that okay. Yeah, thanks, Nick. Before I do get started, I'd like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land that I'm on. I'm out in southeast Melbourne, which is the land of the Bunurong peoples. So as Nick said, my name's Matt Thurgood. I am the course leader / discipline lead / course coordinator for the discipline of criminology and justice here at ACAP. So I'm based in Melbourne at our Melbourne campus, which is where our criminology and justice program is based. I've actually been at the college for quite some time, about 18 or so years, having taught quite a bit throughout the program, as well as now taking a bit more of an administrative role and looking after the course at students, our teaching staff members, etc. But I still do teach because, well, that's why I'm here. And part of the reason why I love what I get to do each and every day. So, I mean, in terms of criminology itself, I started studying it a long time ago, back as part of my undergraduate degree. I just did a Bachelor of Arts. Unfortunately, when I finished high school back in the 90s and started studying my undergrad in the late 90s, there weren't criminology programs. I happened to find it in my arts degree, where I was looking at either psychology or criminology as career options. And I absolutely fell in love with crim and ended up, my 3rd year was just criminology, and I've gone on from there. So I'm actually still technically a student. I'm currently doing a PhD in crim. And the reason why I love it so much is because there's just always something new to learn. There are never simple problems. I've got got the marketing quote there that I put together, so you can have a read of that quote. But essentially it's this, and I'm sure this is why you're probably interested in criminology. There's so many different aspects to it. As I say, there are no simple answers. Everything is complex. We need to look at things from a wide array of different situations and positions. I mean, even if we just consider, a general crime, a criminal act, we got to think about the motivations of the offender. We think about the victims and their point of view. We think about how the police get involved and go about their business. If it gets to the courts, what happens there, and then if someone is found guilty, the punishment side, or how we look to respond to what that person has done. Do we, continue to support victims sufficiently? All of that sort of stuff. And that's just thinking about one specific aspect. And there's just so many different aspects, which is, again, why I love being involved in crim. And I especially love being able to have conversations about all of that with students. So I'll stop banging on about me. Hopefully that gives you a good idea of who I am and why I do what I do, why I love to be at ACAP teaching crim. And I'll tell you all about our program. So as Nick pointed out, ACAP's been around for quite a long time, since the early 1980s. The criminology program's been around since the late 1990s, in fact. So it's done pretty well, I think, to be around as long as it has. We've actually recently revised it, so don't think that, what we were teaching back then is what we're teaching now. That's not the fact. You simply can't do that in crim because things are always changing. So we do have that experience behind us. And we also have a wide array of people who teach our units or our subjects. So there are people like myself and the other full-time team who we'd probably call ourselves criminologists. We study criminology and we teach criminology and we research in criminology. But we also have casual teaching staff who come in, and they are people who work in the field. So lawyers, police officers, psychologists, people who have had or continue to work in the criminal justice system. So they bring their experience, their real life stories. They have students asking them about, the best sort of pathway to get where they want to go, all of those sorts of things. Right. So criminology itself, I've thrown the term around a whole lot, and you've probably got a decent idea of what it means for you. But just going with a textbook definition, being an ology, it's the study of, and obviously it's the study of crime. So we want to understand what crime is, what impacts it carries. So I've already mentioned, in relation to victims, but we can also think about broader society. We can think about, economic aspects of it. There are so many different bits and pieces to think about. We can also think about just all the different types of crime that there are out there. So a lot of them require quite specific attention and analysis. We can think about, everything from just basic property crime. I've sat in lectures before about graffiti and why people engage in graffitiing walls, right, through to, property offences, break and enter, that sort of stuff, drug offences, violent crime. I've just finished up this week teaching the terrorism elective unit, right? There are just so many different areas. So that alone, there's tons to unpack. So criminology is about understanding all those different aspects, crime from a sort of more global point of view, and then at its more specific levels as well. Criminology is also really focused on responding to crime, and this is becoming obviously more and more important. Clearly, we haven't got the answer yet because crime still keeps happening. We've got a vast array of different responses, but clearly we haven't hit whether there is I don't know if we can ever hit a perfect solution to crime. But there's certainly a lot more work to be done in that space. And there's also crime prevention, which is, again, something that is being seen as increasingly important, because obviously if we can prevent crime from happening in the first place, we don't have to worry about responding to it. So that's a big factor as well. So criminology covers all of that. And you'll see when I put up our unit listing that we have units that cover all of those different aspects and more, in fact. The other side of it is the criminal justice side. So as you're aware, our bachelor course, for example, is called the Bachelor of Criminology and Justice. The reason why we've called it that is because it combines the more theoretical side of things. So, trying to understand why people commit crime, the way or why police do what they do, why the criminal justice system looks like it does, all these sorts of things, right? The other side of it is understanding the practical aspects. So, we can learn about the history of policing, for example. We can learn about different policing approaches, but we also need to understand the practical challenges that police face. So, for example, just how difficult it is operating in a diverse multicultural society, dealing with mental health issues in the community, thinking about how police themselves deal with their own mental health challenges. Right? So there are just so many different aspects. So yeah, when we're thinking about criminal justice, it's more the practical side. It's how justice is done, or at least we seek to achieve justice. So everything to do with the criminal justice system, the police, the courts, the correctional system. So what we generally consider to be the criminal justice system. You've got youth justice as well as its own kind of area. So again, we split, adults from youth, or juveniles, as they used to be called, from young people. You've got victim support agencies in there. You've got various social agencies, government and non-government. So criminal justice actually is more than just the criminal justice system. And I think that's an important thing to consider, because I'll talk through the different career outcomes that are possible with our courses. But it's not always the obvious stuff, where our students end up. Because again, criminology is so broad. Criminal justice, or the idea of justice, is so broad. We can think about social justice and other aspects too. So there's a lot going on, if you hadn't already guessed. So speaking of the career sort of areas that criminology and justice involves, so talking about it broadly, we again can think about sort of the key aspects of the criminal justice system. You've got the investigations, intelligence, and law enforcement side, kind of the sort of front end, if you like, of the criminal justice system. You've got the middle part, that is essentially more the courts, so the law to some extent, but the court system and what's involved there. And then you've got the kind of the back end, if you like, or the end of the criminal justice system process, which is what we do with offenders in particular. So corrective or correctional services, victim support comes in at that point too, you could say. So those are generally the three sort of key branches, if you like. So thinking about the first one, and I'll term this, or I'll phrase this around where generally our graduates have ended up. All right, so these are all possibilities, but generally speaking, students that do come to study at ACAP, study criminology and justice, there's still a fair amount, maybe around a quarter, maybe a bit more, who are looking at policing. So generally that means state police, so Victoria Police or Queensland Police, that kind of thing. So they study with us in order to get a bit more knowledge of what the job is going to be like, to add a bachelor's degree to their, or an associate degree even, to their resume, which helps with the application process, etc. We have students who have been successful in gaining employment at federal level with federal police in particular, so the AFP, as well as, there is a whole bunch, if you're willing to make the move to Canberra, at least for a little while, as a graduate, there's a number of federal agencies that are in and around criminal justice. Again, as I said, it's not always the obvious stuff. So for example, there's ASIO and ACES, the intelligence agencies. So if maybe you're more interested in, say, the counterterrorism space, all right, you might get to do a bit of that with the AFP, but really it's ASIO and ACES to deal with a lot of that stuff, as well as having a bit more of an international relations feel and goal around them. If you have a bit more of a financial mind, AUSTRAC or ASIC are really important agencies. So AUSTRAC deals with transactions, financial transactions, and it might not sound that exciting, but they actually play a key role in helping combat organized crime and terrorism, because the key way that agencies like that work now, and investigations into organized crime and terrorism, it's about following the money trail. So you can kind of maybe get a sense of maybe we're a drug trafficking ring, is bringing drugs across the border or that sort of stuff, but they can easily change that or mask that or hide that. Whereas in terms of money flows, there's only so many ways that can happen. So yeah, there's, again, like I said, there's some less obvious areas you can get into. ASIC is more the corporate crime type of thing. So, you know, if you're continually annoyed that Google doesn't pay taxes, for example, or that there are companies that get away with doing very little in that space, then, you know, ASIC is the sort of agency, the Australian Securities and Investments Commission, that deals with those sorts of issues. So corporate crime type stuff. In terms of law, so that, and the courts, that middle kind of area of the CJS. So you can't, just to be clear, you can't become a lawyer doing a criminology and justice degree. You obviously need to do a law degree for that. But we have students who come to us who maybe aren't 100% sure that they want to get into law, or maybe, you know, I mean, law degrees, you still need a pretty high ATAR score and things like that at the large unis. So using or coming to us studying a Bachelor of Criminology and Justice can actually give people a pathway to study law. So you do the bachelor's, get a bit of a background, and then go and do what they call a Juris Doctor, which is essentially a master's level. And from there, you can go on to practice. So there is that sort of pathway that you can look into if you are still thinking, or you are thinking about legal work in that sense. Otherwise, without being a lawyer, you can still engage in legal work. So paralegals, for example, working in law firms, doing a lot of the legal research, helping, you know, solicitors and barristers present cases and things without actually being the one standing up in court. So you can still do, if you have an interest in that side of things, you can still get to it. And there's also roles like court registrars or court reporters that are available there too. In terms of the corrective side or correctional services, there are, a few different areas here. A lot of them, or most of the roles here are in community corrections. And actually, if you're interested in working with offenders, you know, helping them get through their rehabilitation, or making sure that they are doing what the courts have asked them to do, this type of thing, then community corrections is a growth area. It has been for the last few years, and it continues to be, because a lot of the courts, especially in Victoria, aren't so keen to put people in prison, because we generally know that prisons don't work. And actually, if there's an upside, there can be any upside to lockdowns and COVID, it's that courts don't want to be putting people in the prison environment if they don't have to. So community corrections takes care of them. So that's a great opportunity if you're thinking of that kind of thing. Otherwise, I mean, there is working in the prison system. So as a correctional officer, there's also roles in case management, drug and alcohol, that sort of stuff. So again, it's a pretty broad area. Some of that stuff, it's, you know, traditional criminal justice, but there's lots of areas that are less obvious that you can look into. All right. So in terms of the courses that we offer, there are 3 that are specific to criminology and justice, and there's also what we call a double major, which we deliver with the team from the discipline of psychological science. So I'll talk about each of these in turn. The undergraduate certificate in criminology is just a 4-unit. When I say just, it's a bit of a taster course, if you like. So 4 units that you're able to complete over 2 trimesters, so 6 months. And it gives you a good idea of, well, you know, what's involved with the course, what's expected in terms of students studying, you know, at this level, and give you an idea of, perhaps too, if you're not sure about what ACAP will be like as a higher education provider, give you a good idea as to our approach as well. So the good thing about it is that it's a nice quick course if you're looking for something like that, but it can also be a way to step into the lengthier courses, right? So if you do just want a bit of a slight taster, think about this one with the view that you can actually transfer into the associate degree or the bachelor, and the 4 units that you study in the undergraduate transfer directly into that. So you won't be asked to do those 4 units again or anything like that. That knocks 4 off the total that you can do in those courses. The associate degree of criminal justice involves 16 units. So this one generally takes more like 1.5 years, or up to 2 years, depending on how many units you study in a trimester. This one very much has a focus on the core units that are part of our course. So, the key theoretical and the key sort of the application of theory units. So as per the slide there, understanding the criminal justice system and what's involved in it, the different branches of it, and how it operates, and at times why it doesn't work as well as we would like it to, as well as starting to get into key areas around criminal behavior, crime prevention, some specific crime areas like transnational crime, for example. So that covers things like organized crime, the drug trade, arms trade, etc. So got some key bits and pieces like that. The main course, so when I say the main course, our most popular criminology course at ACAP is the Bachelor of Criminology and Justice. So like any bachelor's, it's 24 units. 20 of those are what we call core or compulsory units, and students can also choose 4 electives. So we have 8 electives off the top of my head. In total, you get to choose 4 of those to do. As Nick mentioned earlier on, and this is the same for all of our courses, you can undertake as many or as few units as you like per trimester, between 1 and 4, all right, generally speaking. So you can do up to 4 units in a trimester. We generally like to have a chat around that to make sure that's going to work. Generally, students will take around 3, but keep in mind, I don't know, maybe at the moment with lockdowns, etc., you might be someone who's managed to find a bit more time. So at the moment, maybe you can do 3 or 4 units. But then once things begin to normalize again and your work hours pick up and all that sort of stuff, you need to reduce, or it could be the other way around. I'm surprised we haven't been interrupted by my kids yet, thankfully. But, if you're stuck at home and you've got the kids and all trying to balance all sorts of things, maybe you just want to start out with 1 or 2 units and just take it slow. And then once you get into the flow of things, and again, as things hopefully normalize in the not too distant future, you can then pick up more units. So keep that in mind. You can start with, a couple, get a sense of what's involved and the time commitment, etc., and then step up. So we pride ourselves on our flexibility, or the flexibility that we allow our students. And that's the sort of thing that I talk to students about all the time. So if and when you do sign on and come and study with us, that's the sort of thing you can just shoot me an email about, and I can help you out with that. All right. So just in terms of the units that we do offer, so the undergraduate and the associate degree, the undergraduate, essentially if you take just the first trimester that's presented there, that gives you a sense of the units that you're doing. So it's the Foundations of Justice unit. So all of our new students, unless you've studied higher education before, you'll have to do our Foundations of Justice unit. It's what we call a transition unit. So it gives you a bit of background to the criminal justice system. So a bit of theory, a bit of history, but its main focus is to give you the skills that you need to succeed in whichever course it is that you choose to undertake. So by that, I mean, getting a sense of the sorts of research that you need to undertake, the level of research you need to undertake, how to reference, how to write different types of assessments. So, the difference between a report versus an essay versus a literature review, that kind of thing. And just, help you with strategies around time management, etc. So Nick mentioned earlier the student learning support team that we have, who are absolutely fantastic. They actually helped us develop that unit to make sure that we were getting that side of things right. So that's a really important one. I won't go through all of the units, so I'll just pick a few of the key ones, but it gives you a good sense just seeing the names there. They're all pretty much what they say. Gives you a good sense of what our program involves and the different units in it. We do have a few what we call the multidisciplinary units. So there's applications in context, professions in society, and sustainable futures. So all students who come to ACAP do those. And again, they're designed to help develop your skills as you come into the course, whichever course that might be, to give you a bit of a more global look at different issues and things. And those units set our students up really nicely for the next part of their courses. And then, yeah, you can see trimester 3, trimester, and the typical second year, things get much more specific. So we start off broad and build up our students' knowledge and the foundational aspects around criminology, understanding key motivations for crime, how the criminal justice system operates. And then we start investigating areas where more specific knowledge is needed and where you start to apply what you've learned earlier on. Yeah, I'll leave that there. Happy to take questions towards the end if anyone has questions about any of the specific units. Those are the elective units that we offer. So as I mentioned, for the bachelors only. So please note, if you're thinking of the undergrad or the associate degree, there's no elective options in those, I'm afraid. But if you're thinking of the bachelors, you can choose 4 of these to study. The electives, we have students slot those in towards the end of their degree. So students are generally in one of their last 2 trimesters, maybe one of their last 3 trimesters, depending on what they're doing. But yeah, the idea is, again, that these further extend their understanding of quite specific issues. So, or we actually sometimes take you on brand new sorts of pathways. So for example, in the terrorism unit, as I said, I just finished teaching that this trimester. I introduced students to some international relations theories, which we then combined with criminological stuff and went off into politics and all sorts of things, because that's what understanding terrorism requires. Whereas something like forensic psychology, which tends to be one of our more popular elective units, that one takes some of the early criminological thinking, why people commit crime, etc., mixes that with some of the psychological theories, and then understanding, the role of psychology in the criminal justice system. So we generally feel that there's something in those units for everyone. And often we have students asking if they can do more than 4, but unfortunately they cannot. And again, for those of you thinking about the bachelors, there is a work placement involved in that. So you might have seen on the list of units that I showed towards the end there, there was a unit called Practicum. So I'll start with discussing that, and then I'll tell you about the work placement a bit more. So the Practicum unit is really a work readiness, if you can call it that, unit. So what we aim to do in that is help our students understand why they've learned what they've learned in the course. So where they've done a placement, it's about, how did you actually see the theories that we've talked about in different classes play out in the real world, right? Or, the sorts of issues that we've discussed in classes, how did you see those play out? So it's about, helping students bring to life, if you like, everything they've learned. There's also some skills development around employability. And what we mean by that is, we'll help you learn how to write a CV, address key selection criteria when you're applying for a job, write a cover letter, interview skills, all that really key stuff that our students are beginning to think about, or a lot of them are beginning to think about as they're, getting close to the end of their degree and entering into the job market. So yeah, that's essentially on paper what the Practicum unit is all about. As I say, it also involves a work placement. So for criminology, the work placement is 2 weeks, and it's really about helping our students get a sense of where they want to go. So I'm sure a lot of you have a pretty clear idea around where you might want to go. If you don't stress. I certainly had no idea where I was going to go. I was always going to be a psychologist, or I thought I did, until Crim took me. And then I was going to work in corrections, and I ended up in academia, right? So, for us, the placement, as I say, it's all about really helping students work out, is the job that I think I want to do, is it really for me? Sometimes the answer is yes, which is fantastic. Sometimes, it's maybe that the student realizes this isn't what I thought it was going to be. I've always wanted to be a police officer, but I didn't realize they spent so much time behind a desk filling out paperwork. Or, I want to work in a law firm, but actually it's not what I thought it was. So it's a really important experience, we think, for our students to undertake. It's also a way that people can develop some contacts, which can help again with finding work in the future. So as I say, it's a 2-week placement. We do help students. So we have, amongst the various services that Nick described earlier, we do have a placements team at ACAP, and they source placements. So they ring around, they sort out placements so that they're sitting there and ready to go for our students. All right. So don't feel like you need to be the one to facilitate that. I mean, if you are able to organize your own placement, that's fine, and we'll support that and help facilitate. But yeah, we'll also help you find a placement if you need us to help you with that. All right. And the fourth course that I'll mention here, so some of you might be going to the psychology session, which I think is after this one. But what we offer with psychology is, as I mentioned earlier, what we call a double major. So it's 24 units, 11 of those are psychology, 10 are criminology, and there's the 3 multidisciplinary units in there as well. And essentially what you're getting with this one, you're getting the key knowledge and skills that you need from a psychology viewpoint. So this is, if you want to become a psychologist, you'd need to do this double major, okay? It's accredited with APAC, the Australian Psychology Accreditation Council. I think I've got that acronym correct. So yeah, it's got the psychological units that they say, a psychology student must have. And then it's got the criminology units that we believe are the key ones, right? So like theoretical criminology, understanding that the key theories of crime and why people commit it, things like crime prevention, etc. So again, if you're thinking about psychology with a criminological focus, this one's a good way to go. All right. So Nick, I think I am throwing back to you at this point, if you are there.
More than happy. I can take us through some entry requirements. So with the undergraduate programs there, again, we had the Undergraduate Certificate in Criminology. You've got your Associate Degree of Criminology, and right through to your Bachelor Degrees, comprised of, with Criminology, you've got your Bachelor of Criminology and Justice, of course, as Matt mentioned, and the Bachelor of Psychological Science and Criminology. Important to note that dual major degree is no extra study or cost involved, just helps you to specialise in both areas, if that's what you're interested in. So step 1 with applying at ACAP is to participate in a screening interview. You can simply jump on our website and pop through either an inquiry or an application. We'll receive your details in our end of the team, and we'll peruse, and we do ask that you please allow 48 hours before we get back in touch with you. After having a look at all your details, we'll participate in that screening interview. It takes no more than 10 to 15 minutes of your day, just where we'll double check some contact details and eligibility criteria before learning a little more about yourself as a prospective student. And then, if we've deemed you as an eligible student in that phone interview, that's where our admissions team will be able to personalise and send an online enrolment form via email that very same day. That's where we leave it in your hands. You just need to jump on that enrolment form, fill in your details, upload your supporting documents, which are generally proof of ID. That's something with the image and signature, so driver's licence is best. You then have proof of citizenship. That's either your birth certificate, passport, citizenship certificate, whichever it may be, or if applying as a permanent resident or an international student, we'll be able to source some other ID documents from you in that regard. And that's basically it. Once you can attach all those documents, submit your online enrolment form, we'll receive it back, and that's where we start to put together a timetable for you. We'll then follow up with your confirmation of enrolment details, allow entry into your student portal where you can have a look at your timetable, and from there, more than happy, we can definitely work back and forward until we find a schedule that suits you. If any of our timetabling preferences haven't met your needs, you just let us know, and of course we'll look into your other options. And that's the basic process before you head into your orientation, which is your welcome to ACAP. This is what your study is going to look like, and what it's going to be like for the next 6 months right through to 3 years, depending on which program you're after. Alrighty, so now we're going to open up the floor for any questions. We've had quite a few in the chat function. If anybody is able to unmute themselves and you wanted to ask over the session, I'm sure Matt's all ears for you guys and can respond.
Nick, just while we're waiting for questions to come through, was there anything that came up that you'd like me to answer, or the team all good?
I'm pretty sure everything so far has been answered. We've got a few slowly coming through, but yeah, everything is up to date as far as the chat function's concerned. Did anybody else have any questions at all? Feel free, you can unmute yourself, and we're here to answer any questions you have.
Hi there, Nick. Is Julie here?
Hi, Julie. I think we can. Yep, we can hear you.
Just a quick one. If I decided to go ahead, I would be an undergraduate. Maybe I missed something. Is there an undergraduate combination in psychology and criminology combined?
Yes, yeah, that was our dual major degree there. So what we typically...
undergraduate, yeah.
Yeah, that is an undergraduate program. Anything right the way through to a bachelor degree will be undergraduate for you. With that dual major degree, it's quite similar to the normal Bachelor of Psychological Science, if you have taken a look at that on our website. What that single major degree offers is 13 core psychology units and a series of 11 electives. So what we instead do there with the dual major, Julie, is we will replace those 11 electives with core criminology units. That gives you an opportunity to specialise in both disciplines. Of course, no extra study or cost involved, and then from there you've got further opportunities in terms of employment and study, so it's just opening up more doors for you later down the track.
Thanks, Nick. So with it being a double, does that mean that the time that would be expected to complete it would be longer or the same?
No, it will be the same. So it's known as a dual major degree, where you would be majoring in two different disciplines. So it's different to a double degree, where you would be doing two separate bachelor degrees. This is just the one bachelor, but helps you to specialise in both areas. So really well designed, actually.
So is that the only dual major available in these fields?
For criminology, yes. We do have one that combines psychology and counselling as well. That's our Bachelor of Psychological Science and Counselling. So you've got two different dual major opportunities there.
That's good to know. Thank you.
No worries.
Thanks for taking that, Nick. There's a couple of questions in the chat that I'll jump in on. So Mimi, around the Juris Doctor. So my understanding is you would need to complete a bachelor's, a full bachelor's. It's maybe a good idea to have a look at the different providers of the Juris Doctor. So the major unis offer those. They'll have their entry requirements, but I'm fairly certain you need to do the full bachelor's to do that. And thanks, Shelley. Shelley's answered questions about the ATAR. So that covers all of those, so thank you. Any other queries that anyone has about any of it?
I actually have a question. So I got into the undergraduate certificate in criminology. If I wanted to potentially go into the Bachelor of Psychological Science and Criminology, would I have to also do psychology like undergraduate or anything like that? Or would I be able to get straight into it if I'm doing that course?
Nick can correct me if I'm wrong, Phoebe, but I'm fairly certain you can just go straight into that. So you don't need to do a specific undergraduate. Nick's nodding, so good. Thank you. You can complete the undergrad in Crim, and then use that as a pathway into the psych program. Yeah.
Awesome, thank you.
And importantly, if you're thinking of the double major, is that what I
Yeah,
heard that correctly? Yeah. So the 4 units that you do in the undergraduate of Crim will count towards that double major as well. So
Okay, awesome.
yeah.
Thank you.
No worries. Good luck with it.
I have a very brief question in regards to so course duration and time frame. So if I'm working full time, which I currently am, and I'm kind of think of like a lock-in contract until I try and leave kind of thing. If I'm considering doing the double BA, what is the maximum amount of duration I can complete that course over?
So as in the Bachelor of Psych Science and Crim?
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah. So with that one, I believe you can do a maximum of 3 units per trimester for that one. So you'd be looking at 3 years.
Is that the maximum time I can take to do it, or the minimum
Sorry,
time?
that's the minimum.
The minimum, yeah.
Sorry, other way around, right? The maximum is up to 7.
Oh, okay, perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you
Sorry,
very
Emma.
No, you're right. I'm like, oh, that's gonna
Scaring
be
you.
that'll be rough.
Yeah. So as I mentioned, the flexible study options apply across the courses. So it's not just Crim. Criminology, we're allowed to offer up to 4 units per trimester, but with Psych, they've got some different requirements through their accreditation body. So yeah, you can do, between 1 and 3 per trimester, essentially, Emma.
Okay, thank you, Matt.
No worries. I've got a question in the chat from Abby. If you think criminal defense attorney pathway, it's really up to you in terms of which way you go. If you're thinking of heading down the law pathway, the traditional one to do would be the straight Crim, but that doesn't mean it's the correct way. So it's really up to whichever one interests you more. As I mentioned in relation to Mimi's question earlier, you can do, as long as you're doing a bachelor's, that's what you need to get into a Juris Doctor. So any bachelor's is fine, is my understanding. Maybe just double check the entry requirements.
I have a question similar to Emma. I work full time.
Sure.
So I'm wondering what does the structure look like as far as the lectures, the tutorials, things like that for studying part-time and being able to do it in the evenings or outside of the work hours, the general 9 to 5?
Yeah. And sorry, my screen has gone a bit funny, so I can't see your name.
Oh, my name's Brooke. Sorry.
Brooke. No. It's my end. I'm hoping you can hear me okay.
I can.
Oh, good. My screen's gone all weird. Anyway, to answer your question, Brooke. So we have 2-hour lectures and a 1-hour tutorial for each unit each week. So essentially 3 hours of contact.
Okay.
What we do with our lectures, though, is we record them.
Mm-hmm.
So like this. So we run it via Zoom, or it's recorded on campus when we're able to be on campus for some units. But either way, it's recorded. So you are able to listen to the recording whenever you can. In terms of the tutorial time, so you do need to be attending the tutorials. Lectures, attend if you can. Tutorials, you need to be able to attend. But we have options that are generally for online, they are from 5 p.m. onwards. So after work hours.
Okay. I would assume I've studied on campus before with university. Would it be similar to an 85% attendance rate for those tutorials per unit?
No, so for criminology, because we don't have those external requirements, it's just a 50% attendance requirement. Yeah. Okay. So it's fairly loose.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, in that sense.
Cool. Thank you.
No worries. All right. Any other questions? The chat seems to have gone quiet, although that could just be my internet connection playing up.
I can actually hear you, Matt. So.
Oh, that's handy.
Yeah.
I just can't see anything. So if you do have questions for me, sorry, I think my screen has frozen, so I cannot see things very well.
Okay.
If anybody would like to ask any questions of the course advisors, anything to do with your entry requirements or that process there for applying or anything else like that, definitely feel free to ask in the chat or pop off mute and ask while we're here.
How much time per unit would you expect as a lecturer and a teacher for us to spend, say, or be able to commit to each unit per week, just on an average?
Yeah. And sorry, I can't see your name.
It's Brooke again. Sorry.
Oh, Brooke, no worries. It fluctuates. On average, it's usually twice as many hours as there are contacts. So as a general rule, if you've got 3 hours of contact, it's another 6 hours.
Mm-hmm.
So 9 hours per week per unit.
Mm-hmm.
As I say, though, it fluctuates. So when you're first starting out each trimester, there's some readings to do, obviously lectures and shoots to attend. It might only be a couple of hours on top of attending classes. But once assessments kick in, then you're obviously spending a bit more time. So it sounds like you're going to be juggling work and study and whatever else you have.
Mm-hmm.
It might be that you just start with one unit and see how you go, and just give it a go. The other thing to keep in mind is, and this could be for everyone, we do have the census date, what's called the census date, that rolls around in week 3 of every trimester, and that essentially gives you 3 weeks where you can just see how it is, how it feels, how it works for you. So maybe if you start off with 2 units, and say, Brooke, in your situation, you go, well, 2's just too many. I'm not able to, give it the time that I want to. You just drop 1. And as long as you do that, if you withdraw from it before the census date, it's not going to cost you anything.
Okay.
So you've always got that option too.
Okay, that's reassuring.
Does that answer your question sufficiently?
Yeah, definitely. No, that's plenty. Thank you.
No worries.
What does the applying for leave aspect of units consist of? Like other unis, obviously you can search online for the catalogues and select to apply for leave that way. Is it similar here?
When you say apply for leave, so do you mean defer? Or
yes, defer for a term because of whatever kind of life circumstances.
Really easy. So you just don't enroll for that trimester.
Oh, easy.
Yeah. So I'm sure there is a form on there as
Would you
well.
want me to field that one?
Yeah, go ahead, Shelley.
Yeah. Okay,
Thanks.
so when you enroll for the 1 trimester. So once you've enrolled, you've got up to that census date, which is the last Friday of the 3rd week in, that you can make any changes by. From about mid trimester, that's when you're able to set the timetable for your next trimester. So at that point, you can do 1 unit, 2 units, 3 units, 4 units with criminology.
Mm-hmm.
If there is something coming up and you do need to take that time off, definitely just basically don't select anything for that trimester, and then you'll be able to do it again for the next one. So it's pretty easy, to be perfectly honest. Just keep in mind that once you've passed that census date, you can't make any changes for that particular trimester.
Yeah, tracking that. All right, cool. Thank you very much, Shelley and Matt.
Not a problem.
Thanks, Shelley. All right.
So,
hi. Sorry.
Oh,
You go,
Sorry.
Susan.
Yeah, I can't see names. Sorry, I'm not sure what's going on with my screen. But yep, sounds like Susan. Go ahead.
okay. What is your disability support like?
So we have what we call the accessibility team.
Mm-hmm.
And what they do is they'll get in contact, or you fill out a form and get in contact with them, and they'll work with you around whatever supports it is that you need. And they then tell us as lecturers you know, this student needs extra time on assessments or needs more time to complete a quiz or whatever it might be. Yeah, so it's a fairly significant focus for us.
Great, thank you.
No worries. You can actually find information on that on our website as well. If you pretend to be a current student, you can see the different services that we offer. So there's information there around the stuff that Nick talked about earlier, the learning support, but also the non-academic support services. So that includes the accessibility program. I think there was someone else who was going to ask a question as well.
Yeah, hi Matt, it's Rochelle.
Hi, Rochelle.
Just to go back to attending online lectures or tutorials.
Yep.
I'm currently doing shift work, and I probably will talk to Shelley because Shelley's going to contact me tomorrow with more information. I'm currently doing shift work, which means I might not be able to attend a tutorial depending on my shift for that particular day, depending on what units or whatever. Is the 50% attendance for tutorials flexible, especially for shift workers?
To be completely honest, not really. Not really. How far in advance do you get your work schedule?
I've currently got 4 months worth of roster shifts.
Okay. And is that fairly typical? Are you able to plan ahead that far?
I'm not sure.
Right, fair enough.
It's the first time I've actually gotten a roster with my current position. So it's a whole new experience for me. So having the 4 months, after the 4 months, I don't know exactly. I think it's a month in advance, usually. Okay. But yeah, it's very unpredictable due to the work that I do.
Yeah, fair enough. I mean, ideally, you're attending as much as possible. So we have the 50% in there. This is kind of a nudge to students to get them attending. We can, if there was, say, one trimester where, or maybe just a particular point in the trimester where you're finding attendance difficult, we could certainly have a chat and support you in one way or another. But if it was an ongoing thing, then it might be difficult, just in terms of your own, you know, course experience and your learning and your ability to complete assessments and that sort of thing. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. It's all good. Yep.
Yeah.
No, thank you.
No worries.
Hi, it's Phoebe again.
Hi, Phoebe.
Just in relation to your disability services now, I have asked a few questions about this before because I've got multiple chronic illnesses. I'm often in hospital and things like that. Say, I know you've got that 50% rule we were talking about before, but if because my health gets very it deteriorates very quickly. So sometimes within days it'll mean, you know, I'm well and then all of a sudden I can't even go on my phone type thing.
Yeah, okay.
And then I'm in hospital for weeks or whatever. So I know that there's a 50% rule, but if I had medical grounds, if I was still able to complete the assessments and stuff like that, and if I had doctor's letters or doctor's certificates and things like that, how would it go around a medical sort of, if that makes sense?
Yeah, it does. It does. So for situations like that, there's two ways we could approach it. There's the accessibility service that I mentioned earlier. And it sounds like that might be a good idea for you to register with them, Phoebe, just ahead of time so we can best support you. But if things popped up during the trimester and you weren't with accessibility, and this goes for most cases, there's what we call a special consideration process. So that's where, you say, this happened, so I couldn't get this assessment in, I need more time. Here's my documentation. Yeah. And we take it from there.
Okay.
Yeah. So, we could manage that.
And if say I couldn't you know, attend that 50% of like 50% of tutorials, if I was still like able, would I get an automatic fail, or if it was on medical grounds, not necessarily?
Not necessarily. Well, no. If it's medical grounds, then you wouldn't fail. Yeah. The only if you miss them and we never heard from you, then a fail would come into it.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. So you wouldn't have to worry too much. As long as we know what's going on, like when you can contact us, you just get in touch with us, whether that's me or whether that's the accessibility officer or one of our student admin team. Yeah, as long as you stay in touch with us, we can best support you.
Okay, awesome to know. Thank you.
No worries. All right, it has very quickly rolled around to 7 o'clock, folks. So it might be a good time for us to end. I'm not sure how many folks. Again, sorry, my screen has done a great job. Zoom has frozen for me, so I'm not sure how many folks are still in the room, or if anyone still has any questions.
Right, I might I'm just going to interrupt there. I was just typing away to Susan, but I realised it's probably easier to say. So the 6-month course that you mentioned earlier is the Undergraduate Certificate in Criminology. So that's kind of what I would explain as like a foundation, like a test as well, to make sure that that's sort of what you're wanting to do and that ease into higher education again. So with that, it is the first 4 units of the bachelor as well as the associate degree. So you can go on and do further education as well. It does definitely help as an undergraduate certificate on your resume if you are applying for jobs within the criminal justice industry in various roles. But as a springboard, I would say, definitely into further education there. With the bodies recognised, it is an undergraduate certificate, so that is fantastic. Matt, correct me if I'm wrong, it's not actually recognised there with any bodies per se, but it is 4 units there of a bachelor.
Yeah, so none, I mean, criminology in general doesn't have broader accreditation requirements, so it's not like psychology or counselling or any of those. We don't have professional bodies in this area, if that's what the question was referring to, Shelley?
Yeah, so it was just in regards to what bodies that the course is registered, recognised with, so yeah. Yeah,
so we fall under TEXA, the Tertiary Education Quality, I should know the full acronym what that stands for, but essentially the Australian government's education body for higher ed. So you can find us on the website, and you'll see all of our courses are registered there.
Okay, thank you.
All right, I think it might be time to call it an evening. Again, sorry, I'm at a bit of a loss here because I'm not able to see anything changing on my screen apart from me. So thank you all for attending. I hope you got all the answers that you were looking for, and that you're in a good position to make a decision. Hopefully that's a decision that means I'll be seeing you at orientation ahead of our next trimester, whether that's the upcoming trimester in September or maybe even next year. So thanks so much. And yeah, all the best.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome, Phoebe. Matt, I'm going to log off now, sorry.
Yeah, I'm going to try and get out of here too, slowly.
Not a problem. Thank you so much, everyone. Thanks, Matt. Bye.
Lovely
Thanks,
meeting you,
Brendan.
Matt. Okay, see you later, Shelley.